Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hollywood Mate Connolly with the double biceps. It is in the contract. It is a legal requirement every time we appear on camera. This is the co-host, co-founder, co-wearer of clothes, co-breather of air in this room, the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year Award. It is, in fact, Dave Stockbridge joining us here today on his own podcast. He's joining us, but it is our second inaugural year. We are talking about one of the interesting things that I've found and frustrating things that I found for years. This always has been a big annoyance for me is weight cutting in combat sports. And people who don't know what weight cutting is, essentially there is a weight restriction when you enter a division, and let's say the UFC, for example, because this is where I'm heading with this. So if you fight in the 185-pound division, the most that you can weigh on the scheduled weigh-ins, which is the day before the actual competition, you have to step on a scale in front of the actual legal commission and they will check your weight. You must be a maximum of 185 pounds. Normally, if it's a non-title fight, they will give you a 1 pound allowance for scale differences. So you could be 186, just because some scales might be slightly different. So they give you that variance. But if it is a title fight, it must be 185. And what people do to get an advantage when they go into fight, so they might weigh in at 185, but they've actually cut a whole bunch of water weight in the days leading up to the weigh-in. And as soon as they step off that scale, they are rehydrating their body with IVs, with fluids. They've actually banned IVs now, but then they're eating again, and they might actually turn up to fight in the cage at say 215 pounds.
So it's been known to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So they've pushed the limits of what they're getting enormous advantage over their opponent. So obviously their opponent's going to do the same thing, and you end up getting two 230 pound guys or 215 pound guys fighting, and the problem is, because you might think, oh, that's not a big deal. The problem is that weight cutting, not only is it dangerous, but it has been responsible for ruining so many fights over the years where people mess up their weight cut and maybe they're trying to dehydrate themselves down to, let's say, 185. They normally weigh 205. They start their cut at 205. They get to like 190 and their body just will not sweat any more fluid out. And it's like, no matter what they're doing, they're sitting in hot baths, they're sitting in saunas, they can't lose any more water weight. And then, it's like, well, now they have to get permission from the other athlete. Hey, I can't make this weight. Do you still want this fight to go ahead? And then it's on the other athlete to say yes or no. And obviously there has been cases where the other athlete has said no. And they've been crucified by media and fans because the fans were really looking forward to this fight. And it's like, well, the fight was 185 pounds and this guy can't even make the weight. Why are you getting angry at me? It's like, well, we just want to see the fight. We don't care about the weight really. We just want to see you guys fight. But not only that side of it, but if they can't make that weight, they lose 20% of their purse, usually to the other fighter. But it is an unprofessional thing. It's seen as unprofessional, but it is very dangerous because people get so desperate to make that weight that they are literally so dehydrated by the time they get on the scale. Several times we've seen it over the last few years. People have literally fainted on the scale. They're so dehydrated getting on. They're shuffling. Their teeth, their mouths are all cracked. They're desperately trying to just get to the scale to weigh in so that they can rehydrate. Then the next day, like some cases in less than 24 hours, they're stepping into an MMA cage and fighting and getting kicked in the head. And there's been so many times where people have been touted as the favorite, and they've gone into the fight having had a massive weight cut, and they've been knocked out relatively with
relative ease.
Because not only when you dehydrate like that, the fluid around your brain also diminishes as well. So, and it takes about 72 hours to fully rehydrate your body. So if you're 24 hours stepping into a cage and you get punched, and when you get knocked out, it's because your brain actually rattles into the side of your skull and it gets scrambled, and that's when you just come completely out. So there's been a lot of cases where fighters have made a big weight cut, they've stepped into the cage. Not only do they have the higher chance of getting knocked out easier, but they usually perform a lot worse because their body is exhausted. It hasn't, it just doesn't make sense that you do, say, 12, 16 weeks of a fight camp to come in and just wreck your body the day before the fight.
Yeah.
It is a big frustration for me.
And we've heard on this podcast from Carly Angel and her battles with weight cutting and the effect that it had on her body as a young woman, and none of it seems particularly healthy. And you were talking about it, how when an organisation makes some changes, how things can go wrong.
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the things that the UFC did. Originally, up until about UFC 200, they would have 24-hour weigh-ins, and it was the day prior to the event. They would put it on as an event. It was you would go see the weigh-ins. They still do this, but the weigh-ins that they do now are not real. Like
ceremonial.
Yeah, exactly. They still step on the scale, but they're actually wearing clothes now and whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas prior to that, it was that was the actual official weigh-in.
Yeah.
And so if somebody was struggling to make weight, they would be walking in front of, a few thousand people that had turned up.
Yeah.
And it would be very obvious that they had missed. But there were so many fights that sort of were put in jeopardy or cancelled that they
took it behind the curtain.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. And they gave the fighters an extra maybe 8 to 10 hours before the actual fight. So they used to happen in the afternoon, about 24 hours prior to the event. And now they do it the day before, early in the morning, like between 9 and 11 a.m. usually. You get 2 hours. You could weigh in at any time during that 2 hours. It's up to you. So you could just, if you're on weight and at 9 o'clock, step on the scale, get it done.
Any chance in and so you get an opportunity in that window.
Yeah, that's right. And usually the people that are struggling, they wait until 11 o'clock because they're still out the back in the sauna. But so that's one of the measures that UFC has put in place. They also put in place the banning of IV as a rehydration tool, which is a little bit controversial because obviously the IV is a really great way to rehydrate your body.
Yeah.
But they was trying to sort of put pressure on people to stop weight cutting as much.
Yeah.
But obviously people are just still going to be doing that because they're like, my opponent's going to be 30 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do it, regardless. And now I don't have the IV as an option. So I have to rehydrate just with normal fluids and you're getting a whole host of extra potential risks that go along with that. So that's where the UFC is at the moment. They still have problems with weigh-ins. And a lot of fights are still getting cancelled with it.
Yeah.
It does seem to be a little bit better with the extra time. But One FC, which is an organisation based in Asia, they came up with, and I actually really think this is the best method that has come about, it's a hydration test. So prior to weighing in, you get a hydration test, and I'm not sure exactly how they do it, whether it's blood test or urine or whatever. And you must be a certain percentage of hydration. You cannot be dehydrated. So if you're going to step on that scale and weigh in, you cannot be dehydrated. Therefore, you cannot have cut water weight to make the weight.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, you could have not eaten. You could have done whatever else that you could do, which is not cutting water. But their focus is on there's so much danger with athletes being dehydrated when they go into fight that we're going to make it, you cannot be dehydrated. Regardless of what your weight is, you might be on weight, but you're dehydrated. You're not fighting. But
what was the result of that?
Yeah, well, this is why we're talking about this at the moment. Great concept, sort of flawless in a way. You can't be dehydrated. Austin, you've eliminated.
There's no flaws in this plan.
There isn't at all in one aspect of it.
Just one issue. Maybe that's why they're called one championship.
Yeah, that's right.
Everything's great except for one thing.
Yeah. In terms of the idea and the implementation of it, they couldn't have done it better. It's like it works. It will work. It will stop people.
What didn't they anticipate?
Yeah, well, this is what happened. So there's a card that's coming up this weekend.
I'm really looking forward to it as well.
Yeah. What's the main
I
event?
bought the pay-per-view. Just have a look at it.
Yeah, hang on a minute. It's versus.
Nobody knows.
No, well, the main event might not go ahead. This is what sparked the wanting to talk about this as a conversation was. So they've implemented the anti-hydration. You cannot be dehydrated. They've put a card on with 10 fights, so you got 20 fighters. 9 of the fighters didn't pass the hydration test the day before the fight.
So what happens now?
That's 9 out of 10 fights that are off.
Or they go to catch? Oh no, because the athletes they can't do anything. They can't do anything.
You cannot weigh in if you're dehydrated.
They fight next week.
No, they won't fight at all. So now this card that they've spent a lot of money promoting, they've got all the athletes there. They've spent money on bringing them over, their teams. They've sold tickets to the arena. All the promotional materials there. All the crowd is there. All the people have paid money to fly there to see these fights.
It's going to be 3 fights.
There's no fights anymore. So
none.
Yeah, well, I think literally there was 1 out of 10 fights that could go ahead.
So what do we know about what's going on now?
I haven't looked. This was this morning that
the Yakuza have shot the guy that runs won a championship. That's what's happened.
Yeah, well, this is the problem. Is like you come up with a great idea. The majority of competitors are still going to try and find that edge and try to manipulate the rules. The majority of them failed in doing that. And now One FC is the one that gets penalised because they can't put their event on because all the fighters dehydrated themselves to try to make weight when they knew there was a hydration test.
But is it the newness of the hydration test and not understanding the limits of what you can do to dehydrate or to cut a little bit of weight, or was this that fighters that were sitting 20 pounds heavier than what they should be still deciding to fight in what may have been their traditional weight category instead?
Yep.
Instead of just going up a weight division or 2 or 3.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So the hydration test has been in for a couple of years. So it's not anything new. It is exactly what you said. It is people that are too heavy for that weight class. They shouldn't be fighting in that weight class. And they should be in the weight class above. And they've tried to manipulate the rules and they failed. But
how detrimental is that now to the brand?
Yeah.
One championship.
Yeah, well, now they've lost out on an entire event. So you would think, so from their perspective, they've done everything correct. It's the fighters that have let them down. And it's like, but how do we then go forwards for our next event?
Yeah.
Because this is probably going to happen again. And then people will lose faith in organizations or in fighters very quickly because if they've paid money, if they've gone and they've looked forward to seeing an event or seeing a certain fight, and then it's like, oh, that fight didn't happen because he didn't pass the hydration test. And it's like, oh, that's disappointing at the very minimal reaction. And then it's like when they announce, oh, they're going to do it on this date. And it's like, oh, well, and then if they get cancelled again, it's like, oh, this place is a joke. You know, they never even put the fights on it first. So it probably once or twice you get if you don't keep your word as an organisation.
So what do they do next, do you think?
Yeah, it's tricky because from their perspective, and I agree with what they've done, is they've made it fair, but the athletes are the people that are making it difficult.
Yeah.
And it's like you'd almost have to work with the athletes and maybe you'd implement something where it's like, okay, we're going to test your hydration 3 times that week leading up to the fight. And if you're starting to dip, like you better get that up because it's going to be on you if you don't make this. Because if you're trying to dehydrate, we're going to know about it 3 days beforehand or the day beforehand. It's like this is the important moment. You cannot be dehydrated. You are heading towards dehydration. You need to either negotiate with us now to we'll find out a better weight class and see if your opponent will agree to it before we step you on that scale or before you even get to the scale and you fail the test and then the fight gets cancelled.
Yeah.
If you know you can't make that weight without dehydrating yourself, you need to do something about this right now. We need to either find you a new opponent or get your opponent to agree to a higher weight class because otherwise we're going to end up with this situation again where the fight's off. And that's the worst case scenario for everyone. No one gets paid. No one gets to see a fight. It's just a really difficult thing.
It is really difficult, Matt. But I'd like to think that the board of one championship, isn't it? Yeah, they'd be sitting around and watching this episode of Daily Combat Podcast, heartened by the fact that they've got your support.
They do. They're the only ones who've done something drastic about it. Every other fighting organisation that's come and gone.
Hollywood Matt Connolly believes in us. We can do this. We can do this, guys. That's Come on.
We found this podcast from South Australia. You guys got to check this out.
Yeah.
We're doing the right thing. Yeah, we lost $100 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
For that one guy.
I've been waiting for him to say something about this championship, and God damn it, he's finally said it.
That's right.
It was worth it.
My alarm to get up is...
This is your alarm to get up.
It is.
You got to go to work soon?
Oh, no. Normally throughout the week, I would be getting up this time because I work night shift. Yeah, this is my 7 a.m. It's 7
Rise
p.m.
and shine.
For anybody who's watching.
It is.
Because no one's watching live because I'll have to edit this later.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1FC, good job, great work with your...
Good job,
go broke. They've done the right thing. Your fighters who are subcontractors, they don't fight for 1FC, they are employed by 1FC, they have a contract that they were supposed to fulfill and they failed you and your entire card.
Yeah.
But there needs to be a change. You're going to have to work with them and figure it out. And maybe it is start getting them tested earlier in the week. Figure out, this guy's trying to, he's going to try and dehydrate himself. He cannot do that. We got to figure out an option, a better option, because it's either that or this fight's going to be off. And for the fighters, take responsibility for your actions. Like, if you're fighting in this organization, you can't dehydrate yourself. Yeah. They are going to test you. You will get caught.
Yeah.
You won't be able to fight. And not only will you not get paid, you'll let everybody down, not just your fans, everyone who put the event together, who paid money, who your coaches and everybody that came along and supported you, your friends, family, whatever.
It's the compromise, I guess they're doing it for health reasons. They're trying to draw a line in the sand and, but if somebody's willing to put themselves at physical disadvantage, perhaps it's like, well, let them do it anyway.
That has happened before when somebody hasn't made weight, and this has happened with some significant high-profile fighters. Anthony Johnson, who ended up fighting at heavyweight, he was fighting at welterweight, which is like 4 weight classes below.
Wow.
Which is, I think, is 170, and then he was fighting at heavyweight, which is over 205.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was really straight. He fought at 170 a couple of times, and it was like he looked like a skeleton with skin painted on him getting into the weight cut. He did make weight a couple of times, decided this is ridiculous. I'm almost dying to get this weight. Moved up to 185, failed weight at 185, didn't make weight at 185.
Wow.
And then he said, okay, I'll come up to 205. Didn't make weight at 205. And then eventually ended up in the heavyweights. But but he had a fight, and it was a big profile fight against Vitor Belfort at 185. And they were questioning, is he going to be able to make 185? The whole press tour, everyone, Anthony, you going to be right for your weight cut? Yeah, I've been working with this nutritionist. And he didn't make weight. And he didn't make weight by a lot, not by a little. It was like, so you could be 186 at the most because they give you that 1 pound allowance. I think he was like 197. 197 before he said, I can't make it. And Vitor Belfort, it was up to him whether he wanted to take that fight or not. And he said, I don't care. Let's fight anyway. But then... obviously, when they get in the cage, Anthony Johnson's like 4 times the size. And it was, Vitor actually ended up winning that fight. I'm pretty sure he did. And they cut Anthony Johnson after that. They said, you can't make anything that you've said you've broken all your promises. We put a big profile card. You said you'd make it. not only did you just not make it by 1 pound, you missed by like 17 pounds. It's not a little bit. He might getting sick and whatever, but it is what it is. But the frustration for me is that if everyone just moved up a weight class, then they would actually be fighting in their natural way, and they wouldn't have to worry about these. It'd be the same divisions.
Do you think his nutritionist was Mr. Whippy?
I think it was. I think it was the same nutritionist as Alistair Overeem's drug protocol.
I was going to say
Mr. Whippy. I loved Mr. Whippy. That was my favourite one. It was the slogan was the little kid with the swirly ice cream. Yeah, that was awesome. Soft serve ice cream. Yeah, you can make me one. My dad came home once and he goes,
he came home once.
He said,
I remember that.
I do remember that bit. This is the annoying thing about it. He said, I bought you an ice cream, but it was melting, so I ended up eating it. And I said, you could have just not told me that. Now I'm annoyed. Now I want an ice cream. Why did you just not tell me?
You feel owed. Yeah.
I want the ice cream. Where is it? Yeah, Mr. Whippy, go on there after here. Yeah. Oh, you can't go there. It's a mobile thing.
Does it? Yeah, it has to come to you. You have to be. It's opportunistic.
Maybe there's an app.
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Whippy app.
Yeah.
Oh no!
There's a business.
Wow, there is. There we go. The next Uber.
Hey.
Nobody listen. I'm cutting this bit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. You'll see me next. I'll be with gold chains. A big whippy ice cream.
All my dreams came through, but I never made weight again.
Yeah, that's right. But what do you think? What do you think about it, weight cutting?
Oh, I think it's unhealthy, and I don't think it's great, and especially for younger athletes. There's younger athletes that they need to maintain a healthy body fat in order to be able to mature, especially female athletes. And there's certain sensitivities around the reproductive orders of children, children that are developing into adults that should not be compromised because of any sport, and the pressure that's placed on a lot of these athletes to stay in their lane because they may be ranked in a certain category is an unrealistic expectation, especially as these young kids are graduating from their teens into their early 20s, and in any other sport. This is the era, that's the time in an athlete's life where they have the greatest physical growth. And where not only as they're growing, but as they're filling out their body, they get better hand-eye coordination, they develop all the neuro pathways, and that all require a healthy level of fat. Mm-hmm. So you've got a whole myriad of health problems that emerge when you weight cut and you dehydrate, and it affects every organ in the body. Yep. And in some cases, you do that regularly over time at a period when your body wants to be growing, and that is a recipe for disaster, long-term disaster, and it's no wonder that many young athletes end up turning away from combat sports as a result of that, especially female athletes. So I think there needs to be some kind of a lot of athletes are very anchored into their weight category, and so feel like that's where they need to stay. I think there needs to be an easier way for these athletes, especially when they're in their teens and early 20s, to be able to graduate from one category to another quite seamlessly, and take with them their rankings, or take with them whatever it is that they need to get to the next level. And I think due consideration has to be given to hydration after fights as well, because the emphasis seems to be at the moment weight cutting before, hydrating before, and afterwards not so much. And so you've got somebody who's now gone through this curve, and on the other side of that is then spent 15 minutes in a cage or in a ring, and loses 2 or 3 kilos, through that whole experience. Yeah. And and then often because they're craving and or if they win and they're celebrating, and alcohol can be involved, and and then they're craving the wrong foods because they've abstained for so long and perhaps are celebrating, and so the replenishment process is an unhealthy one often as well. My feelings are that there's definitely ways that the various combat sports can address that better over time. There needs to be a balance, and I feel like what One Championship are doing there is a step in the right direction, and it's just a matter of having a provision for when things do go wrong, so that the people that are paying the bills aren't disadvantaged if the athletes don't toe the line.
And how unfair for everybody when somebody else tries to manipulate the rules with weight cutting, and then they mess it up and they don't make weight, and everybody loses because people don't get to see the fight. The fighter doesn't get paid. The other guy, they still get their show money and they get 20% of the other person's fight, but you'd rather have the fight that you've trained for and everyone came to see. One of the other ideas they had was, and this hasn't been put in practice for this reason, was weigh-ins before you step into the cage. And that's exactly the reason why you wouldn't do that is if somebody doesn't make weight and they're right there, it's like, oh, sorry, everybody.
Next.
So, the cancellation of fights, it's from a promotion side of it. You wanting to look after people's health and safety, sure. But you wanting to put on an event. It is interesting that it's weight that they've gone with as the division selection. It's like, let's go with body weight. And then it's like people go, well, how can I manipulate that?
I'm very fortunate that none of these things affect the ring announcer.
Or if you're in the heavyweight division.
Always weighing over.
That's right.
Yeah.
I didn't know they weighed the ring announcer.
No, well, because of the ring.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, that's right. So they weigh your clothes as well.
Have
you done one of those? Have you done one of those underwater weighings?
No, I've never been that concerned.
Because they'll weigh your bathers.
Yeah. Oh, really? Separately?
Yeah.
Oh, technology. It's amazing.
Yeah. Because obviously you got to wear this in the tank.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. You're not going to be nude in front of 30 people. Well, not usually. Well, you can be if they agree to it.
I was at Garage Wars last Saturday. That's not what I saw.
Do they have weigh-ins for Garage Wars?
No. No, there's no weigh-ins. Just a lot of nude people.
Right, They were naked anyway.
Yeah.
Did they weigh their clothes though?
No, just separately. Yeah.
I want to weigh some clothes. How much do you reckon that T-shirt weighs?
300 grams.
Yeah, definitely. You know the underwater weighing, how they do that?
Yeah, and they work out from your buoyancy, I think.
Right. Yeah, and then your bathers.
Yeah, they put that.
How buoyant they are.
Yeah,
let's just see if they float. I know. Let's just do it. Does it mean anything? I don't know. Not really. I just want to see. Were they speedos or board shorts?
Is it something where they're measuring the density, the fat, or the? What are they
the board shorts?
Of the
person. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the buoyancy. So it's body fat.
Right.
Skeletal. Weight and muscle, and so you sort of get an idea. It's really an indication.
Yeah.
So you could say, okay, this is how much you are of body fat, this is how much muscle, this is how much bone or organs or whatever. I would say got that information.
Is that the answer, man?
Underwater. Everyone
weighing.
just has to go naked in front of the audience.
Yeah.
Underwater.
And
then they weigh their clothes.
I like it. Get nude.
Just wear really light clothes.
Yeah.
And then you'll be fine. You can weigh class you want.
Is this right?
Did he weigh in? Yeah, we weighed his clothes.
So if I'm a heavyweight, why can't I associate and identify as being a welterweight?
Yeah, you could. Did you see where the kid in Melbourne was identifying as a cat in school, and they've supported that?
Did you hear about the guy in America that identified as a deer and got shot?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Was it Dick Cheney that shot him?
But there's a lot of that going on. So maybe we'll see weight divisions just evaporate, and we'll be back to UFC 1, where it was a free for all. And
I did like that.
I think if two fighters want to make up a fight, there's a bit of a discrepancy in weight, and you've got a chemo, and you've got a Royce Gracie, and they want to get it on. I think you just get Big John McCarthy and make it happen.
Yeah, two people want to fight. Okay, get them in there. Let's fight. What do they weigh? Who cares? I want to see them fight.
I want to see Bruce Lee versus Dan Severn.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to see Dan Severn's mustache versus Tom Selleck's mustache. Or what about?
I don't know who would win there. I mean, I'd like.
Tom Selleck's one's quite thick.
I do understand that Tom Selleck didn't actually own the Ferrari. That was always his moustaches, and he just happened to,
Did the moustache wear Tom Selleck around?
That's a question that many have posed.
Whose moustache is better, do you think? Burt Reynolds or Tom Selleck?
Higgins. It's the third option.
I've got what's popped into my mind is people with famous moustaches, and I've gone with Freddie Mercury, Murph Hughes.
Yeah, it's a very prominent moustache.
It was, yeah. But if you get famous with that certain look,
you
feel like you're stuck with that.
It becomes you. You become it. There's no separation from that point on, unless you're really, really wanting to hide.
Yeah. It's like Chuck Liddell with the mohawk. And he's like, I'm stuck with this bloody mohawk haircut.
Yeah.
Because if I turned up to events without it, like just my normal hair, and people were annoyed at him.
Really?
Where's the mohawk?
So it was a fan request.
Well, no, the promoters actually said, why didn't you hang? No one's going to recognise you.
Yeah. Well, what about if Conor McGregor shaved his beard off?
Yeah, he might look like a different person.
Yeah.
He'd look a lot younger, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Billy Connolly had a very long beard.
Billy
Connolly. For a very long time.
Related at all?
It's slightly different spelling, but we do have the same birthday.
There you go.
Yeah,
same person.
It's the same. It's me. I am. Yeah. So he had a very long beard for a long period of time, maybe 8 years, something like that. And he said that he forgot what his face looked like underneath because it had been so long. And then he goes, one day I just shaved it all off.
Yeah.
And he goes, and I looked like a potato.
A potato.
But he said he got into a fight with somebody once, but he had the beard. And the guy took a swing at him, but the guy must have thought that his chin extended all the way to the end of the beard because the beard just went
So a beard's performance enhancers in the cage. Do they absorb? Is there a point where there's officials have to be concerned with too much beard? Do you think?
Yeah, Roy Nelson is a big guy. Big Country Nelson. He had a really ratty sort of beard. And he had to tie it up a bit. There is an issue with it. I mean, if you've got this just hair, this huge beard, when it's almost at your detriment because when somebody else is grappling with you, they can use that in a small. It's got to be a handle in a way. Like, you can wrap up chokes easier, and so he used to tie it into he'd have like a Jack Sparrow sort of thing hanging from his neck, it was very strange,
like a rope, a little small,
and then we're dripping with sweat. It was very disgusting. Yeah, but Big Country Roy Nelson. Have you heard of him before?
No.
Right, he's very. You would never pick him as a fighter. He's very overweight. Very overweight.
My kind of fighter,
right? And he would just be able to absorb so much punishment.
Yeah.
And he would knock people out. He had a huge overhand right, and he would just knock people out with that. And people knew what he was going to do.
They couldn't stop it.
They still got hit with it. And he would get clocked with the biggest punches and kicks. I've ever seen anybody take, and he'd just keep coming after him, keep lumbering after them, trying to get that, and he eventually get it. Or he would just get the crap kicked out of him for 15 minutes, but I don't think he ever got knocked out. I think very rarely did he ever get stopped, and he went against the best guys in the UFC. He was like in the top 5 for a long period of time, and he would have like footprints on him, like of people's feet, that have kicked him, and he'd get battered. I don't know how he was able to take that punishment. Some people, just genetically are made of concrete. But, he was one of them.
Yes,
but he was never in shape. He never got in good shape. It was weird because you see him training all the time, and it was like, how are you keeping that level of body fat?
You maintain that fighting all the time. Yeah, some people are like that. Yeah.
He was training twice a day, 6 days a week.
There's calisthenics guys that are built like a Tomley Boo. And they
a what?
A Tomley Boo.
Oh, a Tomley Boo.
Do you know what a Tomley Boo is? In
Is
the
it
night
like
garden.
Freddie Mercury's
How old are your
muscles?
kids? How old are your kids?
They're under the age of 10.
Okay, so you've never seen In the Night Garden.
Oh, yeah.
Eagle Beagle Upsy Daisy.
Yeah. I hated that show.
Yeah, they must have been on drugs. Tomley Boos. Yeah.
Which one's the name?
Tomley, I don't know. I just imagine they'd be around with a name like Tomley Boos.
Yeah. It was our channel. Our TV was on that channel for years. And I learned to tune it out completely.
So you were able to, you shield yourself from the worst of the impact.
The Peppa Pig and Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom. Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom was all right. But it was the same people doing the voices.
I'm a little princess.
Yeah. The same people that would do the voices for Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom as Peppa Pig. And every time I would be like,
voice actor.
He's the voice for that dude.
Stop it, Dad.
Yeah.
Stop it.
My
You're
kids
ruining
be
it.
like, what are you talking about?
No, he's not.
There's
Completely
actors that play the voices. And
No. Peppa Pig.
Yeah, that's right. It's like 12 girls that have played Peppa Pig so far. I'm the real Peppa.
Oh, well, on that note.
Yeah.
Wonderful news earlier about upcoming tournament here in South Australia.
Yeah, absolutely.
So looking forward to that. And big announcements coming in the next 7 days, and people can check all of that out on your Facebook page if they're at all interested. They can do that.
Absolutely, yeah. Hollywood Matt Connolly on Facebook page and on YouTube and the website as well, hollywoodmattconnolly.com. And you can look at Real Estate Agents Group if you are interested
if you wanted to
selling your property. With over 100 years of experience in one man.
Yeah, in the last 12 months. It's been a tough 12 months.
His first inaugural 100 years.
You go to Dave Sobridge at Real on Facebook if you're at all interested. Now, I do understand if Matt Connolly does a double bicep, that means two things. It means the beginning or the end of an episode, but it's also, if you snap it with your phone, it's like a QR code and takes you straight to his website, mattconnolly.com, hollywoodmattconnolly.com. All right. And worst case scenario, if that QR code thing doesn't work, at least you've got a nice picture of Matt's biceps on your phone.
That's the real reason.
Yeah. We'll look forward to bringing you more next week.